Hello and welcome to the 26th episode of the Cantina Chatter Podcast. I'm Victoria, and I will be your guide through this adventure through toys, collectibles, and film. In this episode, we'll be discussing what it is like being a toy collector in beautiful San Diego, California. As you may well know, San Diego is known for a lot of things.
San Diego is the perfect set. People already associate our beautiful city with animal attractions. San Diego Zoo, SeaWorld, San Diego Chargers.
Well, you can scratch that last one off the list, but you get the idea. San Diego is known for its beaches, its beauty, and one other thing that Mr. Ludlow forgot to mention, San Diego Comic-Con International. With so much going on here, where does that leave those of us who enjoy collecting toys? And if you're wondering why any of these things would have anything to do with collecting toys, you'd have to remember that San Diego Comic-Con draws close to 170,000 people annually. Why do so many people attend this annual event, which has become so well ingrained in popular culture? It is far more than just comic books, as the name suggests. Indeed, San Diego Comic-Con's biggest draw has become the panels for highly anticipated film releases. It's where people gather to see that exclusive new Avengers trailer, or to be the first to know about a previously unannounced film like Batman v Superman, or to see their favorite Star Wars actors discuss their next outing into that galaxy far, far away. Or perhaps to listen to a panel from their favorite toy manufacturer. Indeed, the one thing that nearly every major blockbuster franchise has in common is the merchandise. Action figures, statues, Funko Pops, high-end prop replicas, Lego, etc., etc. The Comic-Con exhibit hall has become a huge draw for toy exhibitors and retailers. And why? Because people like me chomp at the bit to see what is coming next from our favorite toy lines. There's also the opportunity to purchase exclusive new toys available only at the show. And who capitalizes on all of this? Scalpers. Well, it's not all grim, right? Surely there are non-scalpers who buy toys in San Diego too, right? Or is it because of Comic-Con that there are more people here collecting at all? We'll discuss all of this in this episode, and to help me, I will be joined by ToyShiz, who runs a huge social media account on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and also has a YouTube channel and is constantly reporting on the latest toy news and keeping people updated about toy findings and really awesome stuff. I will also be joined by Nick, who also goes by Jurassic Nick 16 on Twitter, and lately has been quite big on the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. Both of them, like me, are local San Diegans, and with their help, perhaps we can unravel what it's really like to collect in San Diego. But first, I'd like to talk to you about the Victoria's Cantina Patreon. As you know, practically nothing in life is free. Even the air we breathe seems to come at a cost. I'm very proud of the work that Victoria's Cantina does, whether it's the toy reviews, the Cantina Chatter Podcast, the toy photography on Instagram, or written articles for websites like Jedi Insider, Jedi Temple Archives, or the Jurassic Park podcast. I love what I do, and I'm happy to share it with all of you. But producing consistent, professional quality content comes at a cost. Unlike many YouTube channels or big-time Instagram accounts, Victoria's Cantina is not sponsored. We generally do not get free toys from the companies that we try to support. Nearly everything that comes out of the Cantina is self-funded. For that reason, I decided to create the Victoria's Cantina Patreon. By becoming a patron of the Cantina, you automatically gain greater access through 4 distinct tiers. The first tier, Life Finds a Way, which can be accessed for as little as $1 a month, gives you access to an exclusive Victoria's Cantina Twitter page that previews upcoming content for the channel and the podcast. The second tier, The Force Will Be With You, which can be attained for as little as $5 a month, gives you access to new episodes of the Cantina Chatter Podcast at least 24 hours in advance. You also get the benefits of the below $5 tier. The third tier, A Hero Can Be Anyone, can be had for at least $10 a month. In addition to the benefits of the lower tiers, you will also receive periodic behind-the-scenes featurettes on YouTube that highlight my review process, my podcast creation, And perhaps the coolest part, graphics design tutorials. Plus, you will also be able to preview select new reviews 24 hours in advance of the rest of the world. And finally, for a pledge $20 a month, the fourth tier, the whole damn thing, gives you all the benefits of the lower tiers, but also a chance to make a guest appearance on Cantina Chatter, request toy reviews, and participate in a monthly giveaway. Yes, a monthly giveaway. Currently, Victoria's Cantina has 2 patrons. I would like to extend huge thanks to Mark and to Hannah for being patrons of the channel, and thanks to the generous efforts of one of our Facebook followers, Jason, I will be doing a giveaway once we reach 5 patrons. And I'm quite envious of some of the prizes that are going to be included in these giveaways, thanks to Jason's generosity. For full details on the Victoria's Cantina Patreon and to gain greater access to its content, click the link in the show notes. All right, ToyShiz, Nick, thank you so much for joining me today on Cantina Chatter.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, stoked to be here.
Great to have you guys. So before we begin, tell our listeners a little bit about what you do, what you collect, and how long you've been collecting. ToyShiz, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, let's see. I've been collecting probably since I was about 3. I started with real Ghostbusters and Transformers, like Generation 1, and all the odds and ends that came out in the 80s, a little bit like here and there, especially whatever I would find at a garage sale as a little kid that I had to have. But yeah, I think I'm going on about at least 28, 29 years of collecting. I always say that my estate sale will be rad, or everyone will think, oh man, he was into some weird stuff.
Wow. And I love that you mentioned the real Ghostbusters, because when I was a kid, it was like the late 80s. I was really into the real Ghostbusters. I had a bunch of those toys.
Yeah.
I still remember, I think we had 4 Ecto-1s, because I remember my aunt or my mother, somebody found a bunch of them on clearance. And I guess for whatever reason, they said, let's buy all these Ecto-1s. So we had a ton of them around the house.
You know what? That is so funny you say that, because when I was a little kid, I went into KB Toys with my mom, and it was like, we were walking around the mall, somewhere, and they were all $2.50 a piece. I still have them. They still have the price tag on them.
Oh, wow.
And she bought like $30. I have pretty much every Ghost or something like on the card. More of the later Ghostbusters than the weird fright features and all that kind of stuff. But you name it, I got they're awesome. And the packaging is so cool on those things. Like, they were such a fantastic part of the 80s, I feel like, as far as toys go and Kenner.
Oh yeah, definitely one of the greatest Kenner lines of all time, I would say.
Yeah, totally agree.
So tell us a little bit about what you do currently.
Currently, I work in marketing, and I've always collected and started ToyShiz just as a funstagram, just to show off and kill some time, basically. And just started 2 years ago. 2 years was just on June 28th. So things have been great. I met so many rad people, so many rad collectors, companies, just people who work in the industry. Man, it's such a good camaraderie that a lot of people even say to me, they're like, thank you so much, like, we really appreciate it. Like, a lot of people make fun of me or something like that. I'm like, you know what, no one should ever make fun of you for collecting. Like, no one should ever make you feel bad for anything you want to do or collect. So ToyShiz is just, it's for everyone to just kind of hang out and talk about toys. That's just the whole gist.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you do a great job rounding up the latest toy news on Instagram, because I find out about a lot of new toys or toy sightings from your posts and following your page.
Oh, thank you very much. I try, there's especially recently, there's so many things coming out. There's so many, whatever you collect, there's something coming out for everyone. And just to kind of keep up with that, I even I'll be sitting at work or something like that. And I'm like, somebody will tag me or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, hold on, I'm in a meeting. I'm like, I got to post this, or,
Nice.
pre-orders and all that stuff. Cause those things, I try to let everyone know as quick as I can, because, they go fast. People were upset with Mezco's Punisher. I'm not a Mezco collector myself, but I know a lot of people are. And yeah, they missed out, and that's unfortunate, but hopefully people that want one can get one.
Totally. And of course, longtime toy collectors will recognize your name. ToyShiz is actually taken from Toy Biz, the company.
Oh yeah, yeah. That like I said when I started, I was like, I want something like catchy or just something that reminds me. And Toy Biz, besides Kenner, was like the ultimate toy line that I could like. I had Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, everything that came out in the '90s because they were just pumping stuff out from Avi Arad and all the cartoon shows that they had, and I have hundreds of those things. So
nice.
Kenner was taken, so I guess ToyShiz is next next
Nice.
best thing. So
Yeah, and they also did the Batman 1989 toys before they got transferred over to Kenner.
oh, you're absolutely right. Those were let's see, I had Bob the Goon. That was the only one that I had out of the Batman line. But when Batman Returns hit, man, I had all those. The quick change Batman, or Bruce Wayne to Batman, the coupe, all that kind of stuff. They're all in a box somewhere.
That's super cool. The first Batman figure I ever owned, I still remember the day. My father took me, it must have been after school or something, back when you would rent, VHS tapes
Oh yeah.
from the rental store. He took me to rent a film, and they were selling toys there. They had the Batman toys, and I still have it to this day. It's the Batman 1989 figure. It has the little grappling belt that you kind of pull, and it has a long string. And,
yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's missing its cape, but I still have it, so that's pretty nice.
See, those are I associate toys with a lot of memories, especially good memories that I have. And like what you just said, you went out with your dad, you found a store randomly that has Batman figures at VHS store. And those are always, like I could tell you 100 stories of like we went here for whatever reason they had them, and blah blah blah. So that's really cool. I like that. That's an excellent story.
Absolutely. And Nick, tell us a little bit about what you do on your end.
So I haven't done any dedicated collecting except for the last 3 years now, almost 4 years, with the newer Jurassic lines coming out. But I still have stuff from when I was a kid, from the 90s Star Wars lines, from the original Kenner Jurassic Park lines, that every time there was a garage sale, those were the ones that I really held on to. So Star Wars and Jurassic really have been my two the entire time.
Cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. And those are the two mainstays of my collecting habits, collecting patterns as well. It's Star Wars, I feel like, has always been like the bread and butter of my collections, what I always say. And then Jurassic, I've been buying those since I still have the ones that I received back in '93. So for quite some time now. And we actually met briefly at the Jurassic Park 25th anniversary celebration at Universal Studios Hollywood in May, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was definitely more asleep than awake when I met you. I have been up something since like 5:30 a.m. So I went and I volunteered at the aquarium up in Long Beach. I do that monthly since I actually work in education at the aquarium down here in San Diego, Birch Aquarium.
Very cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I try to get involved with aquariums. I had an internship up there, so I still try to stay involved there. So I was running on excitement at that point. And at 12 whatever at that point after the movie, he's like, "Hi, it's me." I'm like, "Hi, yes, I know who you are. I can't word right now, but I'm excited to meet you."
Yeah, that was fun.
That's where I was.
That was fun. We kind of ambushed you there because we were looking for people coming out who we could get on our live stream, me and Matt Brenda, that we had going. And that was a blast. You had an awesome Alan Grant costume, I got to mention.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the guys over at Jurassic Outpost almost live streamed me before saying hi. When I saw them earlier, awesome. That was a lot of fun.
That's incredible.
But yeah, that event was great because we got to see some of the new Mattel line that hadn't been released yet.
Yeah, they had a lot of cool stuff to see. It was a great event. I had a blast there meeting everybody and seeing people that I hadn't seen in a while, and having the panel and all of that stuff. Just the energy there was very positive, and I felt like everybody was having a great time. I'm really happy that Universal did, and I hope they do more of those in the future. Yeah,
hopefully. Nothing like getting communities together like that for something a little bit smaller scale than Comic-Con.
Absolutely. And of course, before that, I had already been following you on Twitter for at least a couple of years. So I knew that you were, into the toys, and, you were buying these newer Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom toys, which we're all a huge fan of.
Oh, yeah, I'm so fun. I have the Battle Damage Blue on my computer right now. My Super Colossal T-Rex is probably going to be my next unboxing.
Oh, very cool.
I don't know.
Such a great figure.
I feel like they're too cool to leave in the box.
Oh, absolutely.
The Hasbro stuff I was able to leave box, but this stuff is just it's too fun.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy them. I mean, I know a lot of people, and I remember you mentioned some of the ones you had from the 90s. I remember back then a lot of people were hoarding the Power of the Force 2 figures, and they're gonna be worth so much money one day, and I'm like, maybe, but I gotta take these out. I gotta handle them, move the articulation around, and pose them on my shelf, and I still do that at my age. I mean, that's what it's all about, is having fun with them. They're toys. I mean, they're meant to be enjoyed no matter how old you are.
Exactly. Yep. That's the whole fun of it, is just getting into it and being like, wow, how do I still feel this way now that I'm an adult, and I still feel that way when I was like a kid and stuff. So that's cool.
Definitely, it helps you to recapture the magic of being young and getting your first Star Wars figure or your first dinosaur toy. And I think that for a lot of us, just being able to relive that is what gives us a lot of enjoyment in this hobby.
Yeah, I agree.
So as I mentioned at the opening of the show, I invited you both on because firstly, you're local here in San Diego, and secondly, you're both into collecting. So I want to talk about what it's like to be a collector in San Diego. I noted at the opening that San Diego, it's the 8th largest city in the U.S., and it's known for so many things. We have a fantastic curation of some of the greatest attractions in the world. There's the San Diego Zoo, which is renowned around the world. We have SeaWorld, Balboa Park, the beaches, amazing cuisine, very close proximity to Mexico with the largest border crossing in the whole world, and some of the best weather in the country, I might add. But then there's also Comic-Con, and it's obviously the most famous of the big cons, because I'm sure you guys have heard of New York Comic-Con, and there's Tokyo Comic-Con, and those are big as well, but San Diego Comic-Con is the first thing you think of when you hear Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to analyze what the impact of Comic-Con is on local collectors. But in order to do that, we need to draw some comparisons to collecting in other places. So I have to ask, have either of you lived anywhere outside of San Diego before? And if so, where? Nick, we'll start with you.
I lived in Orange County, so Anaheim area, and I still occasionally go up and visit, and I'll see what I can find up there while I'm there. I do notice they seem to be a little bit less picked over than San Diego.
I can agree with you on that. Yeah, I used to live in Orange County as well, so it's a little easier in some areas.
Well, funnily enough, I used to live in Orange County too, so that makes 3 of us.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, actually, before that, I was I'm originally from Texas. I grew up in a small town. I was born and raised in Texas, a town you probably never heard of before. I lived there until I was about 19. Then I moved to San Antonio, Texas, which is a big city. It's similar in size to San Diego. Cool. And it had a great toy selection. Like anytime I was collecting, which at the time, this was like 2004 to 2008, I was buying Star Wars almost strictly. Since, at the time you didn't have Jurassic out, it was kind of dormant. Mm-hmm. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe was kind of just getting started in 2008. Back then, we had the Dark Knight trilogy, which was kind of going on, but even that didn't have like a whole lot of toys or merchandise. So I was mostly focusing on Star Wars, as I kind of have like nonstop since about 1996. And it was a great city to collect in. I definitely didn't have too much difficulty finding things. If I did, I usually managed to find like new figures or new waves of figures at some point, even if I had to wait a little bit. And there were quite a few collectors there. I was on the, at the time, they were the Jedi Council forums. They were part of a website called theforce.net. And there was a subgroup or a sub-forum of collectors from San Antonio. And we would kind of go on there and say, oh, who's looking for this? Who's looking for that? And, you got to meet collectors through that. But overall, it wasn't too bad. So then I moved to Orange County in 2008. And I feel like it was a little bit more difficult to find toys than it was in Texas. But it still wasn't like San Diego. Like I could still... I was still collecting during that time, like the Legacy Collection, the Clone Wars, the Vintage Collection was the big one, obviously. And some of those were a little hard to find, especially some of the later waves, like after the first year that the line had been out. So, I mean, stuff was a little bit tricky to find. Like Toys R Us, I didn't have a whole lot of luck there. And I even worked at that Toys R Us for a time in South Orange County. So even then I had some difficulty tracking things down. But not until I moved to San Diego, and then it was a completely different ballgame. It's incredibly difficult to find things here compared to anywhere else that I've lived. And I'm trying to analyze why exactly that's been the case. And since the time that I've lived here for the past 5 years, I've had to resort to online shopping more often than not. And I think a major part of that is due to distribution issues and poor case assortments and the like, for like Hasbro Star Wars, for example. I have to believe it's due to that partly, but for various reasons, I think there are just so many people buying toys here. And honestly, I think I have to attribute that to San Diego Comic-Con. What do you guys think about that? ToyShiz.
I don't think you're too far off. I think that with kind of Comic-Con being a mainstay here in San Diego, it's probably led to a lot of people being a big fan of pop culture, especially, Marvel, Star Wars, anything like that. So being that, what are they into, like the almost 70th year or something like that for Comic-Con or something like that, I would say a lot of people have kind of grown up collecting and things like that. I don't disagree with the fact that, a lot of people collect. They might be collecting for monetary reasons, which, I know a lot of people do that. You can't stop them, but it kind of takes the fun out of collecting, because nothing's better than going to the store and finding exactly what you want. And that's how I've always collected. I always resort to online buying as a last resort.
Absolutely.
Especially with, let's say, like DC Multiverse and stuff recently, you haven't been able to find anything. And in the last month or so, they've really ramped up with, distribution. And I think part of that is finally they're getting rid of Wonder Woman and Justice League and all those figures that kind of been sitting on the shelf, even Batman v Superman. Yeah. They've clearanced them or sent them off to, let's say, Ross or TJ Maxx or something like that. And things that have supposed to have been out since like last year, August, now they're finally popping up. And I'm like, finally I can finish my collect figures. And man, there's nothing better than finally finding that one where you're just like, God, there's the headpiece, or there's the left arm, or something like that. So,
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nick, what are your thoughts on the impact of Comic-Con and its effect on collecting in San Diego?
Oh, I have to agree with ToyShiz. Comic-Con really makes it almost popular and accessible for the average person who might not have thought of collecting to think, hey, I really like that character from that Marvel movie or that Star Wars movie, and then I'll be like, I can pick that up. That'd be fun for my desk at work. Where other places around the country, it's not quite as popular. It might not be as accessible as a thing for those people. And kind of like ToyShiz said, they might get made fun of by people at work if they have that Batman figure next to their computer.
Sure.
I happen to have 30-something dinosaurs on my desk at work. It makes Larry's workspace look empty. But yeah, I really think that accessibility and that popularity contributes to people picking things up, even if they might not be fully collecting.
It's funny that you say that. Whereas I feel like you get made fun of, let's say, if you have an action figure on your desk, but if you have like a Funko Pop or something a little bit more cutesy, people are more inclined to be like, "Oh, that's adorable," or I'm more okay with that, because I guess action figures kind of have that stigma of like, well, you play with things when you're a kid, and then as you get older, you don't do that anymore. But people that kind of make the more cutesy toys or things like that, I think they have a lot more clearance, and a lot more adults are into that. That's just what I've said. A lot of people have asked, what can I put on my desk? What do you recommend? I'm like, action figures. I don't know. I'm not a pop person.
Yeah, something you can fiddle around with throughout the day.
Exactly, yeah. Like your stress ball.
Right? A Funko Pop just sits there. You can look at it, but at the end of the day, it's still a Funko Pop. You can't really pose it or anything.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm not. A lot of people ask me, they're like, "Oh, why do you collect, or why don't you collect Funko and everything?" And I'm like, I collect their action figures, like the Rick and Morty, and I've what else have they? They had like these Kiss action figures I found at Target. I've only been able to find too, I didn't even like heard of these things until I went to the collector section at Target, and I was like, "What? Like these are awesome! They're like GI Joe size, but they're all the Kiss band members." I'm like, "These are rad! Like these are awesome." So.
Didn't they make Jaws ones too? Is that Funko who made those?
No, I don't think they did. I was actually talking to somebody about that yesterday. They made the reaction toy line 3 3/4 inch figures, and they did a couple of sharks.
Yes,
but, awesome line. But they no, they didn't do Funko Pops. Sadly. I don't know that I mean that quite seriously, because me personally, I have nothing against Funko Pops. I have a few of them. I don't really go all out on them in any way, but I don't have anything against them other than, maybe 20, 30 years from now, there's going to be a lot of landfills full of them. But
they're kind of like Beanie Babies, and I don't mean to like knock anybody that wants to collect them, but just for me, I have to have, as a collector, all that what you were instilled with as a kid. Like if you don't get all of them, well, then you don't have a complete set and you suck. Or it's like you can never have every single Funko Pop. So that's right there. That's for me. I'm like, well, I can't get them all, so I'm not even gonna not even try.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, I've always been drawn to things that kind of resemble what I saw in the film. Like, I feel like if it doesn't really look like what's in the film, it's kind of like, what's the point? I mean, why are you labeling something as Jurassic Park or Star Wars if it doesn't even look like a representation of what's in the film? So that's just my perspective. I prefer the figures because at least they do try and make them look accurate to the films.
Well, I think that's where Mattel really nailed their Jurassic Park / World, just like the Legacy collection at Target. Man, they like the Alan Grant, the Muldoon, and everyone else, and they have the Jeep. They that's what I've been waiting for since I was a little kid, because the figures came out. They were great, but they didn't look like what the movie looked like, except for the dinosaurs, of course. But oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, and lately I've been telling people constantly, like, we are currently living in a golden age of Jurassic Park toy collecting, the likes of which we might never see again. I mean, look how Star Wars has evolved or disevolved over the last 5 years. I mean, I'm telling people, I mean, embrace it. It's not just Mattel stuff, but I mean, Jurassic in general. You're getting stuff from other companies as well. Chronicle, Funko's doing the Pops, Lego. There's just so much of it to absorb right now. So, definitely, collect those toys, enjoy it, because there's really no telling how long it's going to last. And Mattel is totally knocking it out of the park with everything they're doing. Like you're saying, legacy figures and the Jeep. I mean, awesome, incredible stuff that it's the kind of Jeep that you want. Like you said, you wanted it as a kid. You never quite had it. And now they're doing these toys, and a lot of us are buying them up for the nostalgia. And of course, you also have all the new Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom toys, which are equally as good. So, I mean, there's just so much out there right now.
And that, I was saying the other day, when I was in Target, this little kid, he was with his mom, and he's pulling, I want that one. Oh, I want that one. And the kid actually said, it was mind-blowing to me, because he was like, I want the Dilophosaurus. And I'm like, I can't remember the last time some kid or whatever was interested in, like, one, collecting dinosaurs, and two, could tell me like dinosaur names and stuff like that, because I was obsessed with dinosaurs when I was a kid. That was
nice,
just everything. And no, when you started posting, Victoria, when you started posting about the new Jurassic Park figures, you actually got. I was like, you know what, I can't look at the reviews anymore. I gotta go get myself some of these things, and yeah, it's because of you. So you and Talker Art, man, you guys were just nailing it. I was like, I gotta get some of these figures. You guys are killing it for me.
Awesome. Well, happy to help.
Yeah, most definitely.
So yeah, I think you guys are making a really good point about the culture here. It's so well ingrained in everybody's minds that San Diego Comic-Con takes place here. So I think there's naturally an awareness that goes along with that. People know about the movies. They have friends or coworkers that go to Comic-Con, and then they come back and tell them about this new movie that's coming out, or I saw this new Avengers trailer, or I saw these new toys that are coming out. So I just think that in general, the atmosphere is a little bit more geared to something like that than you might see in a different city. I think so. Yeah, I think that, like I said before, San Diego is it's known for Comic-Con, and when Comic-Con happens, it's a party. It's like 3 weeks in Vegas, which is like it's a 1 week here in San Diego. Like you don't even have to go to the convention anymore to experience Comic-Con. There are so many things
outside, even in areas like South Park, North Park, Hillcrest, all those, places outside, just 5-10 minutes outside the city, and it goes off.
Yeah.
So many Comic-Con related things and comic book related things, and it's fun.
It is fun. How often do you guys attend Comic-Con?
For me, this is going to be my 28th year going.
Oh wow!
So I've been going since I was about 5. I was 5 years old, but I missed 2 years because I had work. I couldn't get it off. So, but yeah, Comic-Con it's a staple for me to go at least 1 or 2 days. Anything over that, you're done.
Yeah, that's awesome. The 28 years, gosh.
Yeah, it's thanks to my dad, because my dad's the one. He took me. He was a big, war comics fan, and back in the day when you could go to Comic-Con, like, no problem. It was at January, February. They send you this white piece of paper. You check off. Oh, I want to go day 1, day 2, all 3 days. It was like $27 early bird. Send in a check, and you pick up your badges at the thing. You go there on Sunday if you wanted. Like, just walk right in. Stan Lee wasn't behind like bulletproof glass and everything. You could walk right up, shake his hand. It was fun. But I mean, times have changed, and I'm glad it's evolved into what it is. But it's not so much like Comic-Con anymore. It's more like Entertainment Con, if we're being completely honest. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if you're not necessarily into the kind of things that go on at Comic-Con, like the films or the comic books or the toys, I think that there is even somewhat of an expectation that you might go to Comic-Con just because you live locally. You might have a coworker that might feel like they missed out, that they didn't go to Comic-Con, even if they're not necessarily into that sort of thing. And you have, I know people that have attended just because it's going on, not necessarily because they're looking for anything in particular. Just Comic-Con is going on. It's a huge thing. Like you said, there's stuff all over the city that is being tied into the event. So there's just so many people that are aware of it and so many people that are attending it.
Yeah, I think so. And, back in the day, let's say, being a nerd or something like that was a little taboo. Like, I mean, I didn't get like my head dunked in like a toilet or anything extreme like that, like Revenge of the Nerds, but it wasn't like the cool thing. Now it's like everybody is like, oh, I love the X-Men, or I like these movies. I'm like, yeah, so you can't ever make fun of people being nerds ever again, because everyone's a nerd at this point. Everyone likes something like Doctor Who or Sherlock, or it doesn't matter. It's all nerdiness, and it's all a blast. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I noticed a huge change in that, I would say, when The Force Awakens came out. Like, before that, if you were collecting toys, or Star Wars figures in particular, you were a nerd. But after Force Awakens came back and Star Wars, came back in a huge way, it seems like a lot more people on social media are buying the toys, they're buying the figures, and, they're posting about it. So it's not really a bad thing to be a nerd now. It's kind of actually a cool thing, which is kind of an interesting dynamic.
Right? It's like, if you don't collect it, everyone's like, what is wrong with you? It's like saying, like, have you seen that Netflix show? And you're like, no, I haven't watched it yet. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, Sit down and binge watch for a bit. I am so behind on Netflix shows right now. It's a joke. Like, people have asked me, like, have you seen this? I'm like, no, I've had like zero time to do anything recently in the last, couple weeks to a month. So no Luke Cage, no nothing for me as of right now. Not even Ant-Man and the Wasp. So,
Oh, same here. Haven't had a chance. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff on there, and it's like, well, I don't know what to watch. I have too many options. I'm just going to watch The Twilight Zone.
Right? Yeah, usually you go with something like, okay, I'll watch the real Ghostbusters for like the 80th time, or something like that. But yeah, you always gravitate more towards something you're familiar with, instead of like, okay, I'm going to start this new show, I'm going to do it tonight, and then you end up like I did that the other night, like 2 or 3 nights in a row. Like, okay, Luke Cage, season 2, here we go. And I was like, but I want to watch this. This sounds so much easier right now. Nice. Lazy binge watching. Lazy.
Very nice. And Nick, how often do you get to Comic-Con?
So I haven't been inside yet.
Oh, okay.
Hoping that'll change this year. We'll see. Work is super busy. Something kind of cool with that is we actually do have an exhibit that we themed kind of around the idea of having Comic-Con in the city at Birch Aquarium. Oh, cool. So we're definitely using that culture, trying to ingrain it. One of my coworkers and I were both super excited about that, because we are basically the office nerds as far as comics and more entertainment industry, pop culture type stuff goes. I mean, I work in an aquarium and we're all science educators. We're all nerds in some way. But we fall into that pop culture. I did get to attend Comic Fest this year, though.
Ooh.
It's more of a smaller grassroots kind of what Comic-Con originally was. And that was really interesting to see because I have seen some of the outside of Comic-Con and just how huge it is.
Was it? I actually went to that. Wasn't that fantastic? Just you could like Steve Niles was there, and you could just walk up, and it's like we were old friends. Like it's just, hey, you like comics? Yeah, like it was a great convention, I think.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really nice to have such a nice intimate setting where you could just chat with someone for an hour.
Yeah.
And they tell you, oh, by the way, I'm this person. Like, you're who now? Oh, I didn't realize I was just kind of shooting the breeze with someone who's written a few of my favorite characters. That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they had John Semper Jr. was there, who did the original animated Spider-Man from the '90s. He did like an awesome panel, and a couple of the creators from X-Men the animated series, and they told like the best stories like ever about how they snuck characters in, and it was just like you said, a very intimate, just overall just fun place to go. And that's not even lying. Like, that was how Comic-Con used to be, 25 years ago. It's definitely evolved, but what are you gonna do? At least you can still have smaller conventions like that to go to.
Yeah, I feel like both are really important.
Yeah, most definitely. You get to ask the questions you want. Comic-Con is more for fandom and just going crazy over all the new reveals and movies and cartoons or whatever's coming out. So
And it helps to bring people in too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people be like, oh, well, my friend's going to hang out outside, so I might as well go. And then they fall in love with something. And eventually they do end up at Comic Fest or BlizzCon or something on the smaller end.
Yeah, exactly. There's always something for everyone, and that's the coolest part. So no one's left out. Everyone will find something that they gravitate towards or, like in some way.
That's super cool. So it actually took me 8 years of living in Southern California to make it to Comic-Con. I first went in 2016. I had a great experience. I managed to get in on the Saturday. And I wasn't really there for any of the panels or anything. I didn't really do like the Hall H thing, or I was there for the merchandise. I love the toys, obviously. So I was all about that. And it was a great experience. Getting to talk to, just random people you meet, getting to talk a little bit to, like the people from Hasbro or Mattel or whoever, and, getting all the photos. And, I put a little video together after that. And, I felt like even though I was just like literally like at the exhibit hall, like for several hours on end, like I felt like I was like the end of a day at Disneyland. I was like totally worn out.
Yeah.
It's just like sensory overload. There's so much to see. So many people that you're interacting with and coming across, and the crowds are ridiculously insane. It just like completely wipes you out. And then I went again last year, 2017, and I was a little bit more prepared that time. I had arrangements for chats with Hasbro and like Bandai and Chronicle Collectibles and some of these companies. Did another video after that. So, that's always fun, getting to show people, the things that you're seeing. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it this year. But I am going to be attending the Hasbro breakfast that they're having on Thursday. So
very cool.
I'll get to do that at the very least. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing here. As you guys noted, there's it's just like it's the culture. I mean, it's all over the city when it happens. All kinds of people attend. People come in from all over the world to go to Comic-Con. I mean, it really is a huge deal. And I think that's quite awesome. Very few cities can actually say that they have something like that, other than being like already, just by, default, like a touristy type city like New York City or Los Angeles. But to have one singular event that brings people in from all over the world, I think is kind of rare.
Yeah, and the fact that how grand it's become, and how many people actually, they, like you said, travel all over from everywhere to fly in for like 4 or 5 days of just like Comic-Con madness. It's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit more about our experiences that we've had as we've collected and searched for toys. I mean, we all know about, the toy hunts. We go on our little, I call them toy hunting adventures. That's the little series that I have on YouTube. And, I like to go when I go on a toy hunt, which I do less and less as time goes on. Luckily, Mattel's distribution on Jurassic has been quite excellent for the most part. So I'm not usually too concerned with having to buy certain things online. But when I go on a toy hunt, traditionally I've liked to, usually it's like a day off or I don't have anything going on or I have a free day to myself or, my husband's working and for whatever reason I'm not, I'm at home. So I'll go to several stores. I'll hit maybe a couple of Targets, a couple of Walmarts, Toys R Us, used to when they were around still. But, just hit a bunch of stores. And when I would do that, more often than not, I wouldn't find anything. And I know that you guys are talking a little bit about scalpers or, people who might buy toys, not necessarily to collect for themselves, but to collect perhaps for monetary gain. And I do think that's a huge thing here. I think that is a huge thing here, more so than I've seen it in other places that I've lived. So I want to ask you guys a little bit about what your personal experiences have been with people who are scalping or hoarding toys in order to turn a buck on them. Nick, what has been your experiences with scalpers?
Thank goodness I haven't run into any. I actually think a bloke working at a Target that I frequent thought I was a scalper because I had one of every dinosaur in my hands, and I had to go get a hand cart to get another one because I ran out of arm space for the Roar series.
Nice.
And I decided I really wanted that Metriacanthosaurus, so I had to go back for it. And he kind of gave me a look and like, oh, getting some dinosaurs? I'm like, yeah, I collect Jurassic. And he was super stoked to hear that I was a collector and not just awesome. Scalping. But I really take issue with it because it's occasionally hard for me to find things. A lot of times I've resorted to finding the UPCs and different codes and asking people if they have any in the back and to hold them for me. And I made some friends at stores by doing that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But I don't like that I have to resort to that because I know my red Rex, my parents searched forever to find that Rex for me when I was a kid because scalpers would buy them up as soon as they'd hit shelves, and my parents both worked, so they couldn't be at the store first thing in the morning to buy the toys.
It's funny you mentioned that because, and I still remember it very vividly to this day. I remember being at Walmart summer of '93 and seeing the Red Rex for the very first time on an end cap at Walmart. And a gentleman who was in he had a button-up shirt, slacks, tie. I remember him picking it up and looking at it, and then he looked back and he saw another one. And he said I don't remember his exact words, something like, oh, this is going to be worth something. So he took both of them and he went to the checkout. I still remember it to this day very clearly. So ToyShiz, what about you? What's been your experience with scalpers?
You know what? Since I've been in San Diego, I do use apps every once in a while, but I like to collect old toys still. And I feel like I collect a lot more old things than I do new things a lot of the time. But I look on was it 5 Mile or Let Go or something like that, and as I'm kind of scrolling through, you see new things and the prices are astronomical and stuff. But every once in a while, the stuff that I'm looking for, I'm like, yes, nobody cares about this, so I'm gonna snake in there and get it for cheap. But I think it's accurate to say that a lot of we'll say, I hate to be negative, but like collectors, quote unquote, they get it for maybe just to sell it. You know what I mean? They're not looking to collect it or ever keep it. It's a quick buck, or I don't see. The other thing is, I don't understand, unless it's a very rare thing or one of a kind or something like that, you don't really make that much money. So it's not really that lucrative to kind of time is money kind of thing. So you're actually wasting more time when you could be working instead of that whole kind of thing. But I think that one of the funniest things that ever happened to me, and this was years ago. This was when I was a little kid, and my mom took me to Target when Power of the Force was kind of re-hitting, and she let me out, and I was up at the door, and there was a couple older dudes, which at that point I didn't know they were collectors too. And the Target employee looked at me and kind of winked and opened the door and goes, "Go for it," and let me kind of run. And man, if you ever want to see like at the time like grown men like throw a fit, because I got the Jawa, I got Leia, you know, I got Bosk and all those things, and they lost their minds on that one. I still remember that. That was funny, but
Yeah,
it still happens to this day.
Yeah, totally. That actually reminds me a bit of a scenario that I heard of from it was back during the Power of the Force 2 days, 96, 90, somewhere around there, where they had the collector series, like the 12-inch Star Wars figures, and some of them were really rare. Like there was Chewbacca, like the very furry Chewbacca, and then there was like an Obi-Wan, and a lot of people were trying to get it. I know that my parents are trying to get me one. I remember one day my grandfather went with my mother to try and grab me one, like when they opened, and there were these a couple of policemen that had been going, collecting these 12-inch figures, and I had heard a couple of stories about how one of them ripped the Chewbacca figure out of another customer's hands because he thought, since he had been going every day, that he deserved it. And just stories like that this is reminding me of. But speaking of scalpers, I mean, that's kind of something that I've always experienced. I mean, going back to that time, going back to the little story I was telling you about the T-Rex, the Red Rex. I mean, every city that I've lived in, I've seen instances where people were grabbing a bunch of them. And ToyShiz, you made a really good point when you said that a lot of the time there's really not a whole lot of money to be made, especially when you look at eBay. I mean, I sell on eBay things that older things that I have no longer have any use for, that I've reviewed, maybe didn't really like a whole lot. Also, I mean, I keep collecting, so I got to get rid of some of my other things here and there. And
it starts to look like a hoarder's thing after a while. I was like, I'm going to be on AMC soon if I'm not careful.
Right. And eBay charges you 10%, PayPal charges you 3%. You got to factor in shipping, and then when all is said and done on some of these people that are scalping, I mean, how much money are they really making, and is it really worth the time and effort to buy something, to list it, to ship it, and all that stuff? But I mean, that said, it still is something that I see regularly. Like you mentioned, somebody going in and buying maybe 4 of one singular toy. It's like, do you really need to do that?
Yeah, it looks. I've been there when the Force Awakens came out. I really wanted Captain Phasma. That was before we all figured out that Captain Phasma wasn't even in the movie. And I remember. And I'm an adult, and I'm doing the whole, the happy dance towards the toy aisle. You kind of do that run walk kind of thing. And this dude, big dude, came out of nowhere and just started knocking all the figures, looking, blah blah blah. And I was like, dang, man, like really? And he's like, he said something like, oh, time is money, or something like that. I'm like, I don't know what to say to that. Okay, this is weird. I'm just looking for Phasma, dude. But it's weird. Sometimes they can be, it's a little off-putting, you know what I mean? But I've had instances where if you show up early or something like that, and you're both doing, you're some guys racing you to the thing, you're both thinking you're going after the same stuff, and you get to the aisle, and he's at Hot Wheels, and you're at Star Wars, something like that, and you're like, oh, okay, we're good.
Oh yeah, I've totally had that too. Back in my hometown when I was, once I had a car and I was able to drive myself to stores to look for toys, I had that happen. I actually knew a gentleman that was collecting Hot Wheels at the time, and when first time I went to this Target, I was like, okay, so he's here. As a collector, you always suspect, I'm here early, there's somebody else here early. Are they going to be buying toys too?
Man, it's like a thing in your stomach where you're just like, even an old lady walking, you're like, oh, is she going for her grandson or something like that? Like my grandmother used to do for me. But
totally.
A couple times though, I have given if a little kid, if he's I was like, yo, what are you looking for? And a couple times I'm like, here, just I'll find another one. You take it. I'd rather they have it than me, because then you're like, well, if it means you're gonna collect and do this, that's kind of cool. So
absolutely. And I
watch it turn around and sell it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, same things happened to me. I remember back in 2005 when the Revenge of the Sith line came out. Everybody was looking for that clone commander, the one with the red pauldron and the camo and everything. And I was looking through the Target. They had a bunch of these figures, like pretty much like half of an entire toy aisle with Revenge of the Sith. And I was searching, and finally, oh, here he is, clone commander. And then I remember the mother with the little boy. They noticed I had it, and they're like, "Oh, is that the only one?" And I'm like, "Oh, I think so." And then I was like, "Here you go, you take it." And totally made his day. And I think that did a lot more for me personally than buying the figure for myself. But right after I did that, I continued looking a little bit more, and I ended up finding one. So I was like, "Oh, hey, it worked out."
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I oftentimes, as much as you say, or people say, like, "Oh, I can't find it," or "Stuff's rare," and a lot of people don't have a lot of time to look for it. But on the odd chance, I mean, I've been to Target, like, I'm going home or something like that. I'm like, I'm going to stop. It's like 8 o'clock at night. And for whatever reason, that hard to find figure is sitting on the shelf. And you're just like, how? This whole day, no one's wanted this? This is, all right, this is my lucky day. This is cool. So.
Totally. So yeah, I think that part of our experiences with the scalping is as I mentioned earlier, I think there's just such a huge awareness of collectibles and toys, especially because Comic-Con is here, that maybe that lends to more scalpers, jumping at the opportunity to buy these toys because they know about these things because of Comic-Con and just because there's all these toys coming out for every movie. Mm-hmm. I just think there's more of that awareness there that causes this to happen. But despite the number of scalpers that there are, speaking of this awareness, I think that also leads to more people going to the toy aisle and collecting and looking out for these toys and buying them for their own collections. What do you guys think about Comic-Con having that effect on people that might not ordinarily collect toys, deciding one day, hey, I went to this panel, or hey, I heard that this happened at Comic-Con, or this movie's coming out. Maybe I'm going to look into collecting these lines. Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely say it would inspire some people to collect things they might not otherwise. Funko, I've seen, is often a gateway collecting item because they'll think, oh, there's this one item that looks kind of cutesy, and they'll get that, and then they'll happen to walk by the toy aisle in Target or Walmart, and they'll see the more realistic figure. And like you said, it's nice to have that nice, more realistic, accurate to the movie or comic or show looking figure. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that can definitely spark some people into maybe not collecting entire lines all the time, but definitely collecting a few choice pieces here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I have a lot of friends who, they know I collect stuff, and as much as they like to, they razz me about it, when they do come over, they look at stuff, they're always like, wow, this is so awesome. Like, oh, I thought this was lame. You know what I mean? Like, okay, that's cool. But I think more and more, I had to explain to my friends not too long ago, how Marvel Legends work. And I'm like, if you buy all 7, you get a piece, and then you build another figure. And they're like, oh, that's a really ingenious, marketing move. I'm like, yeah, see? They got you. They got you either way. Because, more often than not, you want the Build-A-Figure, but you don't always want I'm not a big movie fan, or movie figure collector. I like the comic book ones. But if in order to get the pieces, you got to just kind of take it as it goes. But yeah, and as a result, a couple of my friends have said oh, hey, you told me about this one figure. I didn't necessarily want the whole set, but I got what was the last one, the Black Panther figure, or I got this cool Namor figure or something like that. So I think it's all a gateway. Somehow people see something cool, they kind of oh, it's not, it's whatever, and then they go oh, kind of want that. That would look cool, on my desk or in my house.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of the opposite. I kind of go for more of when it comes to Marvel Legends, I don't buy them all, but I'm more interested in the movie figures. And I think it was back in 2014 when the Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and everybody wanted that Build-A-Figure Groot. Everybody wanted Groot, right? So you had to buy the entire way, which consisted of some more a little bit less known figures that really didn't have a whole lot to do with the movie necessarily, like Nova and there was like an Iron Man with a different costume that was, obviously comic based.
Yeah.
So everybody wanted that figure, and then I went out of my way to buy all these figures. I ended up selling some of the figures, just so I could get the Build-A-Figure parts to build Groot. And sure enough, a year or two later, Target or Toys R Us gets the Groot figure as an exclusive.
Right, yeah, and it has like the two little Groots, like the one in his little Ravager and the Plant Groot, or it was. And the funny thing was, I had just, because I didn't get the first wave, like you were saying, I kind of rebuilt it because they had old stock apparently. So when the new Guardians came out, I was like, oh cool, I can get that Star-Lord, or I can get that Rocket and finish that Groot. And like you said, like 3 weeks later, like, oh hey, guess what? We're gonna have this exclusive. So, and it's got a better face, and you're like, dang it.
Yeah, totally. So I think based on what we've just discussed here, we all seem to agree that collecting in San Diego can be quite challenging. It might take a lot of toy hunting. It might take some resorting to buying online, which I'm finding myself doing more and more often in recent years, particularly from Amazon. And there's a lot of scalpers and there's a lot of collectors. So I think all of these things kind of create for this perfect storm of any random collector or anybody having some difficulty, at least initially, finding the toys that they want. And, that's why we have to go online, or that's why we have to sometimes go through third parties, or, ask friends to help us out and so forth. So with that being said, do you guys have anything you'd like to add?
For me, I agree. I do. I'm kind of like, I always tell everybody, I'm like kind of like old fashioned. Like I don't pre-order things usually. I like to go and find it myself. I look at that as like, that's the challenge of collecting, and I have fun with it. You know what I mean? Like when you show up and you find them all and you're like, yes, or you don't, and you're like, dang it. Like I gotta think about this for a couple more days on what my strategy is going to be to kind of get them. But I think that there's nothing better. I mean, even in recent years with BrickSeek and using UPCs and DPCIs and like all that stuff, it's become like another level of collecting, because you can almost pinpoint, like you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, the Target down the street seems to have like the new X-Men, you know what I mean? And then you show up and they're sitting there and you're like, that is so wild to me that, before, I remember when I was a little kid, you had to, God, I probably bugged so many employees that like you call them up like, hi, oh, can I have the toy section? Yeah, well, okay, this Spider-Man figure that I'm looking for, it's like this color, and they're just like, oh man, like kid, we don't know. Like,
yeah, it's definitely changed a whole lot. I mean, collecting as a whole. I mean, there's just so much merchandise out there. I think in the last 10 years, I mean, there's been all these companies. It used to just be like Mattel or Hasbro if you wanted to buy like toys, but now there's Funko, there's Lego, there's the higher end companies like Figma, Mesco, Bandai, Hot Toys, Sideshow, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's just so much to buy, so many options, and I'm sure there's very few of us who can actually buy everything. And yeah, like you're saying, there's BrickSeek, there's DPCI numbers you can use at Target. There's just so many more ways to get toys. You can pre-order them. You can hawk on Amazon and try and snipe them right when they come into stock if you're lucky enough.
Yeah.
It just changed. It just changed so much, and it makes me wonder how things are going to evolve in the future, and how things are either going to get more difficult or hopefully more easy for those of us who do enjoy collecting toys.
I think if anything, it might get easier, but then we're not going to see so much of like a toy section like at Target or Walmart. I feel there will always be certain toys, but maybe not so much of like adult collector ones. They might primarily move online, or collectors clubs or something like that. Maybe if they can work it out. But that's what I think about. I'm like, like there's nothing better than going in, but it's not as fun. I mean, actually, no, I take that back. It is kind of fun when you get a box from Amazon. You're like, I wonder what it is, and you know exactly what it is because you were up at midnight, and and you open it up. You're like, yeah, finally, I didn't have to do much to get this one.
And Nick, any final thoughts?
Oh yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things go, especially with Toys R Us closing. I know that was a blow to everyone, myself included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of talks of reviving other older toy companies.
Yeah, KB Toys.
Yeah. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. I think there was a mention of FAO Schwartz at some point too. So we'll see if either of those actually end up going anywhere.
Yeah, it's what is it? Party City. They're doing like their Halloween pop-up. They're gonna do like a toy thing, and I have seen toy pop-ups like that, and they actually have had Legends. They've had Black Series and things like that. But for the most part, you get like 2 or 3, and the rest is all maybe Barbie or more kid-related fun toys, whereas not so much geared towards action figure collectors and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I think that's where that's going to go. It may not, but I just feel like that's more lucrative, and that's especially around Christmas season.
Absolutely. And it is interesting too, is that a lot of other stores that don't traditionally carry toys or have it in the past, like GameStop, Walgreens, they're starting to get toys too. Even stores like Big Lots on occasion, and Ross are getting like the clearance toys that maybe haven't sold through at other retailers. So, which I'm kind of, it's cool that you have more access to toys like that in that way, but I'm not as comfortable. It's not like we're Target or Walmart. You can go in mostly unnoticed, and go look for a toy. It's there or it's not there. When you go into Walgreens and you're on your way out, hey, aren't you going to buy anything? It's just a little bit more awkward.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is such a thing. Like, people have written in and told me about that. I get that all the time. I'm like, are they thinking I'm like taking gum or like a candy bar? So, like, I don't, like, I was just being super nerdy and looking for toys. Like, like, no. And then they give me that look like, oh, where's he going? I'm like,
absolutely.
This is so awkward right now.
Yeah, or they look down as you're walking out at your purse just to take a look and see if you got anything.
Right, yeah. No, I was going to say, GameStop is like one of the worst, because usually, at least the GameStops that I've gone at, like, nobody's in there, and you're just like, oh, dang it. And they're like, hey, you want to pre-order a game? I'm like, no, I'm just looking for some Marvel Legends or something. And they're like, oh, we can pre-order. I'm like, no, I know you need something to do right now, but...
So Nick, ToyShiz, it's been an absolutely delightful conversation. I think that, there's so many factors that play into collecting in San Diego and what that experience is like. So for anyone listening, I hope that they've gained a little bit of insight into what it's like being a collector in San Diego, because I think it is quite different from anywhere else. So guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having us on. Had a great time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure meeting you both. This was an awesome talk.
It was. We'll have to do it again. Nick, where can people go to find you online?
For Instagram, I don't do a whole lot of toy stuff there right now. I might be reviving one of my other ones, and I'll definitely post it on my Nick is Late to the Party account if I do. And then Jurassic Nick 16 on Twitter.
Awesome. And ToyShiz, where can people go to find you?
Make it simple: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, ToyShiz. I got YouTube reviews, Instagram. That's where I primarily post with news and all that kind of stuff. So you can hit me up best there.
Fantastic. Guys, thanks again for chatting with me here in the Cantina.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That'll do it for the 26th episode of the Cantina Chatter Podcast. Once again, I'd like to thank my guests, Nick and ToyShiz, for joining me to discuss our San Diego collecting experiences. Be sure to check them out online. I will include some links in the show notes. San Diego is an amazing city, and quite easily my favorite place that I have lived. There's so much to see, so much to do, some great food to eat, but not so many toys to buy most of the time. I believe that based on this conversation, it is fair to say that, like with so many places, you have your pros and your cons. And if you're a toy collector living in San Diego, toy collecting can be quite a challenge, but it's not impossible. If you've been listening on iTunes, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It will help to spread the word about the show and increase our visibility. If you're listening on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on toy reviews and new Cantina Chatter episodes. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, And if you're so inclined and wish to gain greater access to Victoria's Cantina, please visit our Patreon page and become a patron. Remember that I will be doing a Patreon giveaway as soon as we reach 5 patrons. As always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Cantina Chatter Podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.